Chat, okay. Participants, admit. Uh, hey guys, I have not used this Zoom thing in a while. And I know they changed it a little bit. So just bear with me here as I figure these things out. Can you guys hear me and see me? You can put it on the chat if you have to chat. Can you hear me? Okay, so here it is. Yes, yes, all good. All right, so let's do this. If you have any questions, you can put it on the chat as well. But, you know, this month was a very choppy month. Um, you had select stocks that did pretty well, right? For example, RKLB did pretty well, but now it's breaking down. BKSY did pretty well. RDW, which we bought right over here, did pretty well. Um, what else? KTOS again took off. But then everything else was pretty much stop and go, stop and go, stop and go, stop and go, stop and go. If I go and check, let's take a look at breath. 1124. So right over here at the beginning of the year, we get the fresh a breath flip. And on this day, the SPXL closes at 226.03, right? And it goes for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then here 10, right? So on this day, it closed at 214.87. So, but it had its strongest move by the fourth day for the most part when it hit, or the fifth day when it hit 231.82, right? And like I said on Twitter, that if you did the studies going back years, normally these moves last about 4 to 5 days. And then what you tend to see is that the initial bounce, it's always easier with the index ETF. And then they pass the baton to the individual stocks. And that's when the individual stocks come into play. Um, so once we got below on this day 120, we got back above for 2 days, but then it was all chop, 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 all chop, right? So when I go back, let's take a look at Let's take a look at some of the previous watch lists. WL1. Let's go to the first one, 1.5, right? Let's go. Let me see if I can pull all these up. 1.5, 1.6, 1.7. Only if there was a way to open all of these up. 1.8. 1.9. All right, let's just start with these, right? Oh, this is an Eli Lilly. Right over here, 113. We have a stock that's doing pretty well. It goes to the previous day high, and then the next day it just fails. BITX, this is 113. We were long here on 1.9. Right over here, it had a decent move. Okay, this is okay, this is Bitcoin. It had a decent move, but what we saw for the most part was these fits and starts here, uh, where they just couldn't get going. Let me see if I see, look, Galaxy. 4x3 day, beautiful little flag, inside day, and then it just craters. CLSK just couldn't get going. BMNR here for a couple of days, not bad. Then I went short. RGTI looking good, and just broke down. Went short on this one as well. So the entire month, and for the most part, this is, I think, across Twitter, once you start looking at some of these guys, um, across Twitter, they all kind of like share the same sentiment that it was a tough month for them because things was just not, they were starting and they would come back in, starting, come back in, not really break down. They wouldn't break out. They wouldn't really break down. It was just a complete chop. And I think most people experience that chop, and but more at the very end. Like here's FNGD acting extremely well, extremely well, extremely well. And then when the market finally is about to break down, this thing it has a tremendous pullback, right? This is where we got the flip from IWM outperforming to underperforming in a matter of a week. GPCR, this is one of the stocks that actually did pretty well and held up pretty well. 3x inside day, then off to the races. Zoom, we had this on the weekly chart, right over here going through this high, and it broke down. And then just recently it came out with news that they own a piece of some new IPO that's coming out. I don't know if it's Anthropology or something to that effect, right? Um, let's see what we have here. GPCR, PLAB. Again, right over here looks okay, breaks down. It sets up again right over here. It just doesn't go. Chrome, we spoke about that. BTBT, a little nice move. Not a lot from this inside day, but nothing at all. BITF, similar situation. Bitcoin kind of like took off at this time. Very small move. LAES, again, holding pretty strong. Here's an inside day, 115 long through 445, 2x inside day, has a decent move, but then it comes right back in and it goes below the breakout day low. Another kind of like Y candle, then it goes up and then breaks down completely. This we spoke about. QUBT, couple of inside days right over here. It breaks out. It goes, comes back in, breaks the breakout day low, still holding the 10-day moving average. It just couldn't get going. Another one that was holding up pretty well right over here, long, 1218, right over here somewhere. Inside day, inside day, inside day, and then it goes and then completely breaks down. This is pretty much the story of the entire month. If I go to some of the most recent trades, RKLZ, this is a short. This is the RKLB short. This this can break down. Uh, and if we are going into a kind of like a more heavy market, these stocks have been holding up pretty well, like IREN. There's a short on this IREX, IREZ. It's the daily short. You have to keep these on your radars. These stocks that have held up pretty well, like RKLB, it's been trapped between the 10-day moving average and the 21-day moving average. Goes above the 10-day, sells off, goes above the 10-day, sells off, right over here as well, and right over here as well. And it continues to tap the 21-day moving average. So I'm short here. Went short here on the breakdown, short when it touched the 10-day. Um, Something to keep an eye on. OKLO is one that we tried multiple times, right? Big news over here, 33 million shares. It pulls back, great, right? Down 3 days, 4 days, 3 days in a row. It goes through this high, completely breaks down, breaks the breakout day low. The next day it bounces. Here it looks good again. Right over here looks good again. Down. Here it did not trigger, but again, it's just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. SMR is another one. Inside day here, inside day here, goes, it just doesn't go. Goes and stops, goes and stops. So for something like this, I wish I had a short on this one because this looks like it goes lower. AMC, looked okay here. Didn't break out. CRWV, another one. Good news right over here. And NVIDIA invests $2 billion. I bought this stock here at the open via CRWG. 539 hits a high of 652. And I'm saying to myself, hey, I'm going to sell most of it and leave a trailing piece. Comes right back into my break-even price. That's the reason why sometimes selling on the way up, it's great. And sometimes you're going to feel like a fool because, it depends on the market environment. If we got a great market environment coming off of a bottom, then these trailers are going to pay off in a very big way. But sometimes when the market starts to change the market environment, and we've been going up for a while, those trailers more than likely they're going to cost you. MP, again, great. Couple of inside days, goes through this high, it just doesn't go. Another couple of inside days, this one didn't trigger. But again, this failed on what you could consider positive news by the Trump administration. And then Reuters came out with a fake article that took the whole thing down. But more importantly, once everyone realized that it was fake, these things didn't bounce again. You just couldn't go. It was, this stock has been on the weekly chart 4 years of sideways action. And it just couldn't go. Just could not go. We went long here on a weekly basis, 35.80. It goes to 44.83, 45, 42.29, excuse me, 42.29, and then it completely breaks down. So, yeah, PLTZ, inside day right over here. I sold it, I believe, on this day. And the reason why, PLTR, all these times here that it looks like it's going to break down. They're going to take a lower and then just comes right back, comes right back, comes right back. And then we finally get this here, this little flag. And once we get the breakdown, I'm like, I'm not going to trust it. So I covered here when it got close to the 200-day moving average. Same thing with HUD. Same similar situation, this little flag right over here. And it broke down. I covered on this day over here. I had a trailer, a 5% trailer uh, and it just got hit. But some of these stocks finally broke down. But that's what happens when you try something so many times and you continue to get stopped out. When it finally breaks, you don't have enough size. You don't have enough confidence to really play it out. So this is the reason why sometimes in this in this business, you got to have a short-term memory. FIGR, looked okay, just couldn't get going. APLD, beautiful inside day. It gets going. and then just completely breaks down. That hasn't not completely breaks down, but this probably can retrace to 30. Mister, again, short Mister via MSTZ at 1432. It breaks down. And then Friday, Bitcoin's getting hit, silver's getting hit, and this thing is bouncing. And it's probably based on where Bitcoin is right now, it's probably going to lose all this. Wolf, similar situation. Inside day, go through, bought here at 1360. And then look what happens the next day. Right over here, it sets up again. And then it goes up for one day. Inside day, it looks okay. Then it just kind of like breaks down. This is the hood short. Long 24.75. Sold on the way up. Left a piece with a 5% trailer, and it got hit on this day. SMCI, big 78 million shares right over here. Prints a beautiful inside day. Goes up for a couple of days, breaks down. Plug looked really good here. Goes inside day. It goes, and then comes right back. NBIS tried a few times, no go. Inside day here, breaks out, breaks down. ONDS, same thing. All these white candles, by the way, are it's when the stock traded 25 million shares or more. So this looks great, right? We bought it a few times here, 850 here, 910. Another nice setup. This is the most beautiful one here. But then it tries to set up again, has some positive news on one of these days, and I tried it, and it just came right back in. IONZ, this is a IONQ short. One long, 129 on the short, 1885. This one worked out well. QBTZ, same thing. One short via the QBTZ. This one worked out well. I covered all of these on Friday. Socks. Yeah, any market weakness. I'm already in this one. Let's see where it goes. SanDisk took MUD, which is the inverse Micron. SQQ. Again, I went long this at 65.15 where we were getting that silver blow off top. Sold it at 66.08, I believe. And the reason why is because the previous day, I go long XPXS at 34.10, and I go in with size because I had a very tight stop. It goes to roughly 35.19, which is only $1, but based on the size that I had, it was going to make a decent difference. And then on this day, 129, we go, and then this happens for the rest of the day. Just straight down for the most part. And I went from a decent sized gain to an okay gain because I sold 75% of it at break even. And then I tried it again overnight. At 39, 32 or something like that. And then it just goes back and forth during the day. Then I bought the SQQ, so I got rid of it because I just had too much in the short side. But it hasn't been easy on either side, right? And here the SPY, inside day, here's a 21-day moving average. This red line is the year-to-date anchor VWAP. Respected this. So when I'm seeing this, I'm like, okay, they want to break it down, but they don't. So I just got rid of it. MU, again, I saw SanDisk, parabolic. This went somewhat parabolic. Bearish engulfing. This should probably have some follow through, maybe to the 21-day moving average. Silver is silver. This was the one. I mean, I tried this the last couple of days and fail, but I had a very tight stop because it's just too many people were on it. And then I think Thursday, and what was missing is from this silver was someone giving me a call. Someone giving me a call um, about silver. And then it happened on Thursday. Guy out of the blue that I met a while ago says to me, nothing. I'm thinking about the markets, blah, blah, blah. And he mentioned silver. This other group that very same day, about 500 people in this group, um, they started talking about silver. They started talking about how, it's had a good move, but it's going higher because the banks are doing this and they're doing that. And then come 1:30, I see another gap up, right? Now I know that there are a few guys on Twitter that publicly have been shorting, and one guy was stopped out. Everyone made fun of him, which is the way things work. Everyone made fun of this guy who's supposed to be on the next market wizard. Uh, and then I see someone else that is also, I tried, I lost, and then I see the double top, and I said, okay. Then I see the breakdown. That's when I went. I said, okay, I'm going to risk X amount, and I just started buying it that morning. And this one played out like they all do. It's always the same. All you have to do is change the symbol, and the question now becomes is whether or not this is going to affect the market like it has in the past. Like even if you go back to every parabolic move out there, it's a form of sentiment, and they all pretty much affected the indices. Um, Let me see if I can find it. I wrote about this today. Let me see if I can find it here. You'll probably see it later on the Substack. But even RGTI, the quantum names, where 1028, 1028, whatever, even the quantum names that it didn't have such a huge crowd, even this one affected the small caps, the IWM, a lot more than the major indices, but it also affected, if you remember, the individual stocks. We had a period right over here where a lot of individual stocks got cut in half. All right, do you guys have any questions? Anything you want me to cover? Anything you want to go over? Because this is all um, from the past. Any questions at all, you can put it on the chat or you could voice it if you like, right? Or you can voice it if you like. Um, but for short-term swings, I think you want to make sure that you are in tune with breath, right? Where breath is above the 5-day moving average. That's number one. Number two, try to find themes if there are any themes out there. And that should be your number one focus. Number three, limit the universe of stocks, right? And I'm going to show you how that's done after the answer to this question. In the choppy market, is it better to wait for the candle close and get into it at the end of the day? Notice I'm not, no. For me, no. Because based on what we're trading and how we're trading, by the end of the day, if the stock made a strong move, there's a good shot that you lost the bulk of that move, right? Now you can say, okay, you can wait for uh, that close, but if the stock is already up, let's say 10%, um, you lost already 10%. Now, obviously, if it goes up 40%, no one matters. So you can do two things. You can say, okay, normally they have a pullback intraday the following day. So I'm going to take all those stocks that had a strong move that day. And I'm going to look at the intraday charts the next day and then buy them on the intraday move for a multi-day move. So you can do that. For me personally, In the choppy market, I'm hoping I recognize that very quickly. I am using breadth. I am going to use breadth as, right, if we're trading underneath the 5-day moving average, then I already know that I should not be going heavy unless my rolling 5-day watch list says otherwise. When those quantum names were moving, we were underneath the 5-day moving average all this time right over here. But trading was great, but the rolling 5-day watch list was telling me that. That's how you ignore this. And what this is extremely rare. This happening, what happened between September and October is extremely rare for the most part, where you see breadth declining, but you have a group of stocks that are doing well. And that eventually led to a nasty pullback in a lot of individual names. You can maybe argue the same right now, where we had this, we're going higher, breadth looks great, nothing is really breaking down, but every individual stock underneath the surface is not working. So with that, number one, try to recognize it immediately. For me personally, like if it's choppy, I'm going to reduce my size as quick. I'm trying to reduce my size as quickly as possible. And then I am looking for traction to increase my size. So, and if I had a trade, a choppy market, then I'm going to go your route. Wait for that candle close only. It's got to go up a certain amount. It's got to close near the highs. A similar, a good one was APLD, right? APLD, if I'm not mistaken, I went long APLD over here somewhere on the pullback. Let me see if I jotted it down here. But this one, I said, this one is breaking out. There's no reason to chase. And then the next day, here's what happened. Here's where you get the pullback. IREN, again, here's a strong day. I bought it here, 55.87. I sold it right over here. But you didn't get that much of an intraday pullback, but the following day you did. Wolf, similar situation. Here's that strong day, which was on 127, 128. I went long at 1496, right? Because exactly what you're saying, right? So I said this stock did strong, but we're in the choppy market. The data centers are one of the only ones that have been holding up well. Wolf, IREN, and an APLD. So I bought it on an intraday pullback, right? But also extremely small size. How do you identify themes of terms on when you go through the scans? Right. So that's visual, right? So um that's visual, right? So you're going through scans and you're noticing some of the same names from the same place. I have a YouTube video about themes. And from a while ago, but if you go back to the September 8th video, um, which were the quantum names, they all look the same. I mean, if you, that video, when I said, hey, these are all the same and that's what we traded, um, right? And just now, I just told you what's been holding up well just recently. The data center names, APLD, Wolf, uh, and IREN. That's just by going through the list, all right? So here, 9:15, 9:29. Where is this? Okay, here. IONQ 9.8 was right over here. So this is IONQ. They all had the same pattern. If you go back to that video, they all made a strong move back in at the end of 2024, and then they kind of just flagged, if you can want to say it that way, for a year, right? That was IONQ, RGTI, same exact thing, right? This was 9.5. I think they all printed an inside week. QUBTS, 9.8 right over here, inside week. QUBT, 9.8 right over here. It wasn't an inside week, but look how tiny this candle was. So that's how, just by going through the scans. and just seeing what's moving and what's not moving. Another way that you can do it is, at the end of the day, you can go through the two main scans, the 25 million and the 4x3, and just see which ones are the best performing ones or which one had the most volume, and you can do it that way. But again, what we want to do is so let me tell you what I believe my job is for the room. Okay. This universe has, based on the filter. Let's see what filter this is. Let me edit here. Well, look, based on this filter, which is probably stocks above $2 a share with a certain amount of average, there's 3,655 stocks, right? If I just do US stocks, right, then I have 6,334 stocks, right? That's the US common stocks. You put in ADR, now we're talking about 7,000 stocks. What I believe my job is for this Twitter room is to narrow down this universe of 6,000 stocks to a handful of names to trade in the short term. That is my job, right? That's the number one job. So then we want to go, okay, we have 6,000 names. How do we narrow down this universe? Then we're going to start looking at the best performing stocks in the short term. Once we do that, we start to realize, okay, this is what normally happens beforehand. They do this, they do that. And how do you know that? Is that you just go through some names and you start to ask yourself where are these moves starting from? What are some of the commonalities? And what you're going to see, and I've done videos on this before, what you're going to see is that a lot of times you have a stock that's dead, barely trading 135,000 shares. Sometimes they do a reverse split. Then suddenly news comes out. The stock trades 159,000 shares, but because for this stock, it's a lot. But here it trades 9.9 million shares. It must have been some type of big announcement, right? And then what typically happens is that the stock will consolidate for 10 to 15 days, and then it will set up again. And usually at the end of the consolidation, what you normally have is price contraction and volume contraction. We see that here with this inside day. Now, this becomes the trigger, a buy stop above this level, right? BNAI, again, similar situation. Stock right here is trading 153,000 shares. For some reason or another, it trades 33 million, and this becomes a major winner. This hasn't set up yet properly, but maybe it will down the road, right? So as we start to see these things, we start to write down some of the commonalities, and then we start to create scans, right? And that's the reason why I have the 25 million scan, right? Stocks that traded 25 million shares or more on any given day in the last 40 days, right? Then as you start going through it, you're like, okay, most of these moves start when price actually contracts. Most of these moves start when the stock is down multiple days in a row. Most of these moves start when the stock is either hugging the 10-day or the 20-day moving average. So 25 million share here scan has got 416 names, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click here on inside day, and I'm going to look at all the stocks that printed an inside day, right? Because we done the homework, and we already know that a lot of moves start when the stock prints an inside day, right? Or if it's down multiple days in a row. So now here I'm looking for ideas, right? BMNY. I'm looking, this is how I am going through the scan. Once I'm done with all these inside days, I'm going to go to the next one, down 3 days in a row, because we've done the homework and we've seen that a lot of times moves are going to start when the stock is down multiple days in a row. 1, 2, 3, 4 inside day. You had a small move here. 1, 2, 3. Then you had a big move. You had a move there. ASTI. Again, look at all these purple candles, perfect example. This thing is trading 39,000 shares, 80,000 shares, and suddenly here it trades 349, 344. This is not a lot, but for this stock it is. And then what you're waiting for is the price contraction and the price and volume contraction. Uh, Here it traded this little, whatever color this is, turquoise. This is an inside day and on the lowest volume in the last 10 days, right? This under normal circumstances will probably be a good trigger, right? So now we have this. So now I'm going to go down 3 days in a row. Now, then I'm going to go hugging the 20 day. What is hugging the 20 days? Or any stock, hugging the 20 day is any stock that's within 3 or 4% of their 20-day moving average. I'm going to go through that list. Then I've noticed that some stocks that are really, really strong, they hug the 10-day moving average. So then I'm going to go through that list. In the gut market, I'm going to have enough names for that one particular day in the good market just on this one scan, right? Done. So that's that. Then if I want to continue to go, the 4x3 scan, which is the purple candle, right? Which is the purple candle. I'm going to do the same thing. Right here, we have 536 names. A lot of these names are on the other scan, but again, I'm going to go through them anyways because I'm trying to catch themes as well. I want to see if there are things that are moving together. Sometimes they're not. Themes don't happen like every environment. We had the quantum names. We didn't get another one until the space names just recently. Just sometimes it might be months before something shows up like that. So with the 4x3 name, these are the purple candles, right? We've done the work, the year-to-date studies that a lot of the best performing stocks year to date start where you have a stock that's dead, moves up tremendously on heavy, heavy volume. That's the kicker, right? You can go back, if you go back 2017, 2016 on my YouTube channel, on the hunt for big winners. This was 8 years ago. It's the same exact thing, right? If you go back when I used to do the stock of the week, right? Let's see, desktop. I used to do the stock of the week, and it was all the same exact thing where you have a stock that's suddenly dead, and then news comes out, and then it's off to the races, right? So that's what you're looking for. So then once you go through that list, you're going to say to yourself, okay, that's awesome, but sometimes there are a lot of stocks that have very low volume. It's hard for me to get in. And sometimes you have some of the big cap names that move extremely well that don't make these lists because they just don't move that way. They don't move the way these small caps do. That's where the top 400 comes in. So now I'll change my universe and I'll go from all stocks to only the Russell 1000 names. And I'll do the same thing. I'm going to take you have 1,000 names. I'm going to take the best performing Russell 1000 names on a 3-month basis, 6-month basis, year to date, 9 months, 12 months. And then I'm going to use these same little columns, inside day, hugging the 20 day, hugging the 10 day, down 3 days in a row. And I'm going to go through that list so I can get the bigger names, the kind of names that move based on dollars, not percentage. And that's how you narrow down that universe. And now what you want to do is you want to try to focus on this list and really hit it out of the park when breadth is above the 5-day moving average. And then all the other days you kind of like just, hey, once we get below, you either take a walk or you start trading small, right? And if you're concerned about the market taking off, then go out there and buy the SPY, the Qs, and the IWM. Hold those as your core ETF holdings in your account. And that's going to help you with FOMO. It's going to help you with your psychology where you don't need to be in. And if the market takes off, it's okay. I already own a piece of the market, right? So I don't need to compete with the market every day where the S&P is up 2% and I need to be up 2% or more. I already own a piece. I know that when stocks finally start to move, that's when I really, really want to really separate myself from the indices. And if and a lot of it, if you look at some of these interviews with some of these guys that won the US Investing Championship, you know, listen, once you go through them and you listen to them, it's all about size, position size. How much are you putting behind an individual trade, right? There's some luck involved, but there are guys that have 20% win ratio, 25% win ratio, guys who are average gain is 4%, average loss is 2%. They did 1,000 trades, but some of those winners had tremendous size and they made all the difference in the world. Now, some people might think that, yeah, he has a 20% win ratio of 30%, which is extremely hard. Some people might think, oh, the reason why is because he's picking bad stocks. No, I think the reason why the 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 win ratio is so low is because their stops are so tight. I think that's what it is. That their stops are so tight that brings down their win ratio. But at the same time, on the flip side, because their stops are so tight, when the stock finally moves, their win ratio percentage looks a lot better because all their losses are tiny to 10 cents, tiny, 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 and then the wins become dollars, right? But whether you can do that or not is completely, that's based on your personality. Can you have a 20% win ratio? Can you be stopped out 8 out of 10 times and that doesn't affect the way you trade? That's extremely, extremely hard. Only you know that. I like to put my stop at a level where it tells me that the pattern is broken based on my time frame. That's where I like to put my stop. If it's a weekly, I'm looking at the weekly stop. If it's a daily, I'm looking at a daily stop. For example, Wolf. This was an inside day. We had all the moving averages hugging 10, 15, 50, 63. All that means, very simply, if they're hugging and tight together, is that the stock has done nothing for the last 65 days. That's all that means, right? So here it had an inside day, right? My stop was right over here. I gave it to 1231, this low over here, right? On this day, if I want to get involved in this day, going through this high of 1423, then my stop is going to have to be somewhere underneath these moving averages, as opposed to someone buying the stock here at 1423 and then putting their stop, let's say, at 1370 or 1390, extremely tight. So that you have to figure out yourself. But very simply, like the 25 million and the 4x3 scan and the top 400, that should be your go-to list. That is your universe. You add the Russell 1000 into the top 400 so you can get some of the bigger names as well. And then you try to just stay involved in the market when we are trading, where breadth is above the 5-day moving average, right? That's your number one filter. Number two, your rolling 5-day watch list and your trades. If they're clicking, then you can start to ignore the market breadth because things are clicking, but that's based on your rolling 5-day watch list, right? The other days, reduce. I mean, listen, I've reduced size like this, like nothing, like to a point where like, why am I even doing this? That's how low my size was, right? Where I'm trying to gain traction, and I'm going to try to do that again. So that way, when my trading is horrible, I want to lose as little as possible. But at the same time, I don't have to FOMO because I own the SPY, the Qs, and the IWM, or whatever it is that I own as core ETF holdings. So the market is holding up, holding up, holding up, holding up, going up a little bit, and I have exposure. Right? I have some exposure to the market where I don't have to chase it. Any other questions? Do I use breath above for the weekly ideas? I do. I do. Not as much though. For me, on the weeklies, it has less weight on the weekly. Um, and if I wanted to do it based on the weekly, then I would have to change from 5 day to the 21 day, right? That's another. But at the same time, what matters to me on the weekly is my rolling 5 week watch list, right? Look at these. Look at the tracking on all of these. This is 120, which is just the other day. KGS, this was an oil company, right? This one did well because oil is doing well. So these type of companies, oil did well. I forget, oil did well in 2022. A lot of stocks did well. That was one of the years where some of these best performing stocks in 2022 uh, did not have 4x3 or 25 million because these stocks trade differently, right? But you're going to catch these typically in the top 400. If you go, like, for example, look at the silver move and and um and the gold move. I can't remember the last time I played the gold stock. HL. I mean, finally started going to the 25 million right over here in December, but it had all these moves. AEM, 4x3 here. But if I would have been paying more attention to the top 400, I would have found these, right? So on a weekly basis, going back to your question, you down 6% since tracking. I'm not sure if this triggered. Bros, 120. That was right over here. High of 63.29. This one triggered, went down, right? And the reason why I didn't take this one was because of the market and what I was seeing. BBAI, weekly trade, 645, right over here. Boom, down. IONQ, weekly trade, 122 is right over here. Inside week, down. Open, beautiful one, right? This reminded me of the quantum names. You can call this whatever you want. High tide flag, but huge move. Sideways for a while. Inside week, or down 3 weeks in a row, right over here, or 4 weeks in a row. Boom, down it goes. RGTI, similar situation right over here, inside week. So you can use breadth, Joby. You can use breadth, but instead of using the 5 day, use something like the 21 day. But also, more importantly, take a look at your rolling 5 week watch list. That's going to tell you more than anything else. And the weeklies, to be quite honest, I think the weeklies for a majority of the people, majority being 99% of the people, I think the weeklies could be better because you don't have to be in front of the screens, and you're looking not necessarily for a bigger move, but you're not looking at all these intraday or daily moves. You're looking at one candle. Any other questions? But again, we're going to chop. I think position size has to be one of the most important things, right? When you're looking at all these returns that people are doing, number one, some of those are YOLO accounts where they're doing it. Um, they couldn't do it for anyone else just because it's just too much volatility. But what's making the difference, it's not like, it's just how much they're putting behind those ideas. Because if you look at the raw numbers, they don't look impressive at all as far as win ratio, how much they're making and losing per trade. They don't look impressive at all. Uh, but the position size is making all the difference in the world. So if you can find a good market and you have a decent setup where your stop, your buy stop, or your buy and your stop, is at a very deep, close level, where if you risk 0.25% or half of percent of your capital, and that amount of money gives you a 15 to 25% position size, then that stock can make a difference in your account. And that's the way you have to look at it is your position size based on the difference of your buy and your sell stop, is it enough to give you a decent size? 10, 15, 20, 25%, right? So let's say, for example, where did I just see the recent trade? RKLZ. This is not this one. This is a short. Shorts are just different. ONDS. Let's say this one was on the list on this day. This is a wide stop though, but let's say this was on the list and the high is 1308 and the low is 1206, right? 1308, it's 90, whatever, 96 cents or 102. You have a $100,000 account. You risk 500, half a percent of your capital. Divide it into 102. You have 510 shares at 1310. That's only $6,681. That's only a 6.8% position. Not big, right? It's not going to move the boat that much. But if it was like more of a tighter setup, let's say, for example, like this one right here on 12.3, right? Or on 12.2 going through this high here, and the stock and the high is 807, so your buy stop is 810 minus 747. That's 63 cents. 500 divided by 63 is 793 times 810. Again, it's a 6.5% position, right? So you can either look for a much tighter stop or risk a little bit more. So that way that 6.5 becomes either 12.5 if you double the risk. And then when the stock moves, you can make a little bit more and it's going to have more of a bigger impact in your account. But that's what this is part of the reason why some of these guys have such a small win percent ratio, because their stops are very tight, right? They're looking, it's got to move right away. If it doesn't move right away, then I'm done. Here's another situation. Let's see this stock right over here. So I believe, in my opinion, they're basically choking themselves, because if they're looking at ADRs at above 4 or 5%, but their stops are half of that, which I think that's what a lot of them do, then you're kind of like choking yourself, because you're buying something that moves 5% and you're putting a stop that's half of that 2.5. So it's got to work immediately. But here, 867, stop 820, 40 cents. That's 1,000. So that's 1,250 shares times 870. This would have been an 11% position, right? Any other questions? So to reiterate, what I believe my job is to narrow down the universe of stocks to a handful of names every single day. Now, that handful of names, what I want that handful of names to have, I want them to have the characteristics of what is seen of all the biggest winners in the short term, right? And I've done this before, where there's a video somewhere that I did where I went over the top 100 names in different time frames, and 90% of them had the same commonalities. 90% of them, 90 out of 100. And I'm sure if I do this now, I don't know why this is going on. Let's see something. I'm sure if I do this now, we'll see the same exact thing, right? Let's see something. Let's see. Let me duplicate this. Let me take a look at the stocks, the best performing stocks in the last 6 months. Let me change this chart to, how do I change this chart? Okay. Okay. So here's NUI. This is what I call a wow factor stock. Why? Because it's trading 442,000 shares and then volume comes in 119 over here, 220, 64, 56, and the volume continues just to stay there, right? Consistently. Sometimes you're going to get setups. But here's a big move, 156 million shares. And then notice here how it starts to tighten up. So this could have been a trigger right over here. Let's see how that looks. All right. So this would have shown up more than likely, hugging one of these two averages, the 10-day or the 20 more than likely, maybe. But this is the way that it played out. Inside day right over here on the lowest volume in the last 10 days, and you had a decent move. This was another good setup over here. Maybe this one didn't work out, but this was a good setup. Inside day. These arrows means that I bought this stock right over here. All right. So this one had the 4x3 and 25 million. SanDisk, 25 million, 4x3. If you look at here, down 4 days in a row, look at the contraction right there, off to the races. HYMC, 4x3. Inside day, inside day. This is pretty much where the moves are starting. Wolf, 23 million, 27 million shares here. Again, no setup as I can see there. BW, 4x3, 4x3. AXTI, 4x3 here. So this is the last 6 months. So at one point I had a 4x3 right there. Where are the moves starting from? This, I believe, here's an inside day on the lowest volume, inside day on the lowest volume, inside day. And what you want to see is what happened after that, okay? ANL, 4x3. This one is setting up. ERAS, 4x3. BNI, 4x3, 25 million. TE, right? This is an electronic energy play, 25 million right over here. And then there's just a lot of 25 million. Where are the moves starting from? Down 4 days in a row. Nice little move. Here again, down 4 days in a row. Nice little move. 4x3, 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 4x3. 17, 4x3, 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 4x3. We can go on this all day. GPCR 4x3, 3x inside day right over here, down multiple days in a row, inside day, small little move, inside day here did not work out. So they're not all going to work out, right? But all we want to do is make sure that we narrow down that universe and make sure that when we narrow down that universe, we're only sticking to these stocks that show on a consistent basis on the best performing stocks. Here, no white candles here, and then suddenly they start to pop up, right? TRX, gold stock, 4x3, 4x3, 4x3. And again, not all are going to set up down the road. They're not all going to be actionable afterwards. But again, this is what we want. So far we are at number 31, and they all share the same thing in common. Purple or white candle. Purple or white candle. Purple or white candle. Anything else, guys? So what we want is so now we have that. So now we want to make sure that we are on our A game. Like that's what I'm trying to do this year more than ever. Try to be super selective. Um, Try to turn off anything that has nothing to do with this, right? Erased everything else. I don't want to know about anything else. I'm trying to focus on this. And then I want to make sure that when we finally get that breath flip, that I'm trying to make as much as possible within that small period, right? So if I can get a period where, I lost 2% now, and then the next one I can make 10 to 20% in that little period, and then I lose 2% on the chop, and then make it again, that's what I want, right? But I want to do it just focus on this, on 4 by 3, 1226 inside day, 3x, 3x ID, 3 inside days, back to back to back. Okay, here, here, here. And this was in that space theme. IPSC 4 by 3, IREN, same exact thing. So again, this is my job, just to narrow down the universe of stocks uh, and make sure that they share the same commonalities of all the biggest winners in the short term. Right. Listen, I just took off briefing. Number one, I don't even go on like my Twitter, like I don't even write that much on it. My algorithms are all messed up. Um, but for the first time ever, I started following some of the young guns, some of the young guys, because sometimes you need some young people who have no baggage whatsoever to do some homework on what it is that's working now because you can learn from them. I think you can learn more from the young guys and from the older guys because us, the old guys, we have a lot of baggage. We've seen a lot of things before. I remember back in COVID, during the COVID days, some of the young guys that I used to play basketball with, tell me about all of these things. AMC, they nailed all of them. AMC, SES, all this nonsense. And I'm like, and I told them, I said, listen, you don't want my advice. Like, I know how this ends. So I'm not going to get excited like you are right now because I know how it ends. Right. Um, so I can tell you, like, hey, make sure you sell on the way up. And the stock already made a 300% move. It might go up another 100%. Right. So some of the young guys, fresh eyes, no baggage, you can learn from them. But besides that, again, if it's not within this realm, try to knock it off. Try to stay super, super focused. WDC, right? Um, Here's one. No, no 4 by 3, no 25 million shares, but this was a big mover, right? So you're going to catch this in the top 100, in the top 400 from the Russell 2000, WDC. It's here. So now we finally have one name out of 61 names that did not share those two common criterias. Okay. Kojit right over here. IBIO, you see it there. ALXO, you see it there. ALM, you see it there. PACS there. OMER, there you have it. AMPA, Maze, here it is. BATL, you have it. NESR, you have it right over here. Even TSEM, you have it right over here. but you would have found this in the Russell 1000 uh, top 400 names. And I call it top 400, but you're not gonna. There's only 1,000 stocks in the Russell 1000. What I typically do, I take the top 150 from a 3 month basis, 6 months, and 9 months. They're pretty much all the same, kind of like similar stocks. I'm not looking at half the list from there. CIFR, VSCO, TCMD, Growits here, 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 here. So we got 83 names. We found one stock that didn't share those two commonalities. One. So that's what I believe my job is, to narrow down that universe. And then we're looking for the right chart context. We're looking for themes, and we're looking just to get involved or stay heavy when the market environment says that we should. All right. All right. So I'm going to leave this here. Again, this is a long form video. I'm going to try to break it up for everyone else just in pieces. But that's our job. We got to try to stay as focused as possible and narrow down everything just to this, right? And try to pinpoint the stocks that's on our list for the following day, right? Take into account market environment, take into account the rolling 5-day watch list, see every day whether or not there's a stock that fits a theme, if there is a theme, right? If there is a theme and there are no stocks in your list, then go out there and take a look at all the stocks, right? So when we had this whole RKOB Space Aero Defense theme, you can just go uh, watch list industry, and it gives you all the stocks that are in that industry. RDW, which we had, ACHR, RKLB, SATL, PL, SIDU. Wow Factor stock didn't work out. Almost didn't work out. Lunar. So then you can do that, right? That's the way to do it. All right. So trade them well, be well. If you have any questions, you want to get on with me privately, just let me know. All right. Like I said, I think for me, I think I can learn a lot, open my eyes more to things that are new, right? Because again, we have a lot of history. And we have to make sure that we stay on top of what's working. But as of right now, this is what's working. It's been working since 2016, 17, 18, way before then. Now it's just a matter of us executing. Execution is the most important thing here. Execution has to do with size, how much you're risking. Execution has to do with identifying the market environments. What market environment are we in? How's my rolling 5-day watch list? Is it working? How's my trading? Go and I said this before, go to that bar chart, breadth indicator page, and start seeing like how well did I do within this range when we were trading above the 5-day moving average, right? Put the 10-day, then put the 10-day moving average. Say, how well did I do when we were above the 10-day? How well did I do when we were above the 21-day? And then that should tell you when you should be pushing and when you should be laying off. Maybe you'll realize that, hey, I did really well when we were above the 5-day, but then I noticed that I missed out on a lot. And then that second trigger was when the 5-day closed below the 10-day, right? So you start playing around with these things so that way you know exactly when you can push. So when you wake up, sometimes when I wake up, I'm like, oh, we're below the 5-day. I don't even want to make a list, right? I do it just for academic reasons, just so I can see what's going on. But it could be as simple as that. I'm not even going to make a list. I'm going to try to keep myself busy doing something else. All right. So we be well, friends. Hold on. Let's see what we got here. Yep, no problem, John. Thank you, David, for spending some time with me. Have a good one, guys.